Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I am going to be giving you my thoughts and feelings and everything about the CARAVAL trilogy. This is going to be a spoilery video, so just make sure that if you have not read the CARAVAL trilogy and you do not want to be spoiled, click off of this video, come back to me whenever you have read it, but that's your only warning you're gonna get from me. But make sure that you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future content, and also make sure that you head on over to my Patreon, where we will be launching a book club in August where we can, read along together. If you are in the top tier, then you get to select a book that either you want me to read or that you love, and I will pick it out of a jar each month, possibly one or two, depending on how that month goes, and I will read that for you. So make sure that you click the link in the description, head on over to Patreon. You get exclusive access to content and posts and everything that will not be here on YouTube. But leave me a comment as well below. Let me know after this video if you agree with my thoughts or if you don't agree with my thoughts on this, because I have quite a mixed batch of emotions when it comes to this. So without further ado, let's get into how I felt about this trilogy. So the way that this came about was I have been hearing nothing but people rave about the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, The Ballad of Never After, which is the second book, and then I think A Curse for True Love or A Curse of True Love or something is the third book that is coming out later this year. And I want to dive into those books. I have been told that you do not need to read the CARAVAL trilogy in order to read those books. But I'm the type of person that if somebody is mentioned in a book in a previous series, and it probably sets up their character, you probably get to know them a little bit, and then you automatically jump into that book series, I'm not going to really have a lot of backlog of emotions towards that character, whether they be good or bad, because I've never been introduced to them before. So I wanted to read the CARAVAL trilogy. So I finished that up all this week. Today is Thursday, and it is June 8th. So 2 days before this video goes live, I started CARAVAL. I'll go ahead and show you. I started CARAVAL Monday. While I was at work. I was listening to it on audio, and then I read it physically. I still have my bookmark in here where I was reading it physically, and then I ended up finishing it up through the audio. So I'm trying to summarize my thoughts on this because I didn't really like CARAVAL, the first book, because I went into this with a little bit different expectations. I thought that this was going to have a lot of romance. I thought that it was going to have a very well-developed plot and all this stuff. Now, I want to say, romance doesn't have to be in a book for me to enjoy it. I had just went into this thinking that it was like a romantic fantasy, because the people that I've talked to and stuff have built it up that way. So I feel like anybody who is like, trying to convince somebody to read this and they're like, it's so romantic, and it's not. It's really not. Even later on in the series, it is, but it's not. And I'll get into those thoughts as we go along. But if you are unaware of what CARAVAL is about, and you don't mind being spoiled, so you're still watching this video, and you have not heard everybody on the internet rave about this series, I'll go ahead and tell you. So you are following Scarlett, and Scarlett was writing letters to Legend, who puts on this CARAVAL thing every so often. And, she's wanted to go to CARAVAL and, be a part of the game and all of that for years. And so you start off with these letters that she keeps writing Legend, saying that she wants to be a part of it, yada, yada. Well, then finally he writes her back after several years and sends her tickets. So off to CARAVAL we go with Scarlett and Tella. Her name is Donatella, but her sister calls her Tella. And they have Julian taken them because, Tella had saw this guy and, basically he's a pirate kind of person. So he was taking her. Taking both of them to CARAVAL. Well, she ends up falling asleep or, I don't know, passing out and arrives in CARAVAL. Her sister is missing. All she wants to do is find her. So now she has to play this game, and things progress from there. Julian is the guy that takes them over to Legend's private island, I believe is where the CARAVAL is going on at this moment. And so you follow along with them, and Julian acts like Scarlett is his fiance because she was supposed to bring her fiance with them. Anyway, so they end up having to like bunk together, and Scarlett is just like not wanting any of that. And then come to find out the whole CARAVAL is about finding her missing sister. So there's clues, and there's like 5 nights of CARAVAL, and you have to find all clues by the time it ends, or I don't know what happens, what they say. So we go on a quest with Scarlett. Now, here is where I have issues with the first book, because I understood the concept. I understood what Stephanie Garber was doing and setting up the world and the characters around her and stuff. But Scarlett got on my absolute nerves. I can't even pinpoint it to like an exact emotion, but she bothered me. Like, just things that she would do, things that she would say. She seemed very childish in a way. And maybe that's how Scarlett is supposed to be portrayed, where she is, naive and just trusting of others and, all of that. So I just had a hard time with Scarlett's character. I also had a hard time with the world around them, because it's like, instead of it being like a fantasy or a paranormal or anything like that, this is like a mystery. And everybody around her's lying, and you're getting all of these backstories and people tricking her and, taking her secrets or, stealing her nights away from her, to give her an answer on something. And I just felt like things were too convenient as well. Like, they're trying to find these clues, and everybody on this island is playing at the same time. And it's like they would find a clue, and then all of a sudden Scarlett would just remember something about Tella, or something that Tella said to her, or whatever. And she'd be like, oh, we need to go to this castle over here, on this island that we saw coming in. Like, I don't understand how it was so convenient. And I understand that, Stephanie Garber was trying to get the characters in place for certain plot holes to progress. I understand that. I just felt like it was a little too convenient. I feel like Scarlett wasn't as strong of a character starting out to be the lead in this. I got confused more than anything. I gave CARAVAL 3 stars. I enjoyed it once I got into the book and I understood what was going on, and I, got connected with the characters. But I don't know, like, it was the world building or the pacing or the convenience of how things were just being solved so easily. I don't know. And so just something about it didn't really make me think, wow, like everybody else thinks in, the world about this series. Like, I was just not hooked. I wasn't like, this is the best series ever, I need to go get all the special editions. Like, I was just left mediocre. I was just left with, it was okay. I enjoyed my time while I read it, but to be very honest, if I wasn't so diligent about wanting to read this trilogy before I read Once Upon a Broken Heart, I probably wouldn't have continued this series. I probably wouldn't have, because like I said, I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay, but for me, did not enjoy it. I'm not a murder mystery type of person. I'm not someone who likes convenience in storylines. I like our characters to go through a lot. I like our characters to spend days trying to figure something out. I like that, the fantasy aspect. So for that, it's just a me thing. I wasn't fully invested with this. So, of course, it leaves on a. Actually, I don't think it leaves on a cliffhanger. No. Maybe a very small, very minute cliffhanger. So you could read this book as a standalone, and you don't have to continue the trilogy. I was perfectly fine after reading this. I was like, okay, that was great. Had a good time, on to the next. But of course, I was like, well, I need to continue because I need to know who this Jax character is, because he is not introduced in this one. So I was like, I need to know who Jax is. I need to get, even if he's just in there for a line, I need to know who he is and establish his character before I go into Once Upon a Broken Heart. So I continued on. So 3 stars for this. I do not have physical books for the other 2, so I'll put them on the screen here. So the second book is Legendary. And here is where Jax is introduced. And I want to ask everybody who has read the CARAVAL trilogy, why are you telling people not to read CARAVAL before Once Upon a Broken Heart? I am so happy with myself that I decided to read this trilogy before I read that, because Jax is like a full-on main character from Legendary to Finale, like a main character. So you get, to know his character, you get to know who he is, his background, all of these things, right? And so I suggest read this trilogy before you read Once Upon a Broken Heart. Now, granted, I haven't read Once Upon a Broken Heart, so I can't for certain say that this trilogy will impact that, but for me it will. I do know that. So Legendary continues on with Tella and Scarlet, and all of a sudden there is another CARAVAL going on very quickly after this one ends. So you have Tella, who is in love with Julian. You have this character Dante, who was brought in the first book, very little, but more towards the end type of thing. So he's a part of this, and him and Tella, so Scarlet and Julian are in love, or at least they have a thing going on. And then Tella has just kind of this, thing going on with Dante. So CARAVAL starts up. You find out that Dante and Julian and a lot of other people are just actors in CARAVAL. So on we go. We're going to the next CARAVAL because guess what? Tella has a deal with a friend that sent them the tickets and all of this, that she needs to find out who Legend is and what his true name is, right? So now she has to win this CARAVAL to see Legend and to get his true name, in order to, I don't remember what the deal was, but basically I think she dies if she doesn't get it. So here we are in the next CARAVAL. Scarlet's sitting out, right? She's like, I'm done. I played the first CARAVAL. I'm out. So she's just kind of observing. Julian is a part of the CARAVAL, but Scarlet is just observing, right? She's not in it. She doesn't want to be in it. So she's off on her own mission. She's trying to find out, some things or whatever. So we get a lot of Tella's point of view, which we did not get at all in CARAVAL. So I'm pretty happy that we get to know the other sister. So on we go. We're playing the game. Dante's being, an ASS, okay, at times because he's wanting to be with her, but yet she, doesn't. And it's kind of a whole mess, to be honest with you. So all of a sudden, here they go. They're showing up, and then the CARAVAL people were like, oh, we don't see Tella's name on the list, so she can't enter. So what does Dante do? Dante tells them that, oh, you don't know who Tella is? She is the fiance of the prince of this area. So now Tella's like, wait a second. So you just lied to them, made them think that I'm engaged to this guy who I don't even know. What if he comes asking for me or asking about who I am and why I'm saying this? So Dante's like, don't worry. He never comes out of the castle or whatever. He's this evil person, all of this. So, he wanted to get back at Tella. So all he could think about was, the most evil person he could think of. So he thought of the prince. So as we're playing, all of a sudden, I think it's on the first night or the second night that CARAVAL is actually going on, Tella gets an invitation from who? The prince. Her supposed fiance. And he writes and he's like, hey, basically I didn't know we were engaged. Would love to meet you. Go to this place, get a gown, and I'll see you tonight at the ball. And so now Tella's like, great. I have to go meet this guy in front of everybody and pretend to be his fiance. So she's not happy with this, so she goes and does it. And whenever she meets the prince, who is the prince? The prince is Jax. And we meet Jax very early on, within the first 10 chapters of this book. And Tella is swooning over him and all this stuff or whatever. And he's just make it seem believable. So then he kisses her. And all of a sudden, she doesn't feel so good after the kiss. Because Jax is a fate. He is the Prince of Hearts, and his kiss is deadly to everybody except his one true love. Now, he can lessen the effects, I think. He can make the kiss, make the effects last longer and, not kill people immediately. The author doesn't go into kind of that detail. You just kind of hear it out of Dante's mouth, I think, or Julian's mouth. Oh, he must just, not want you dead. So it wasn't ever explained necessarily how Jax could keep her from not dying. I don't know. So anyway, now we're enthralled with the fate. We are, having to, deal with that. All of a sudden, we're playing CARAVAL. Things are going wonky. Things are not being explained. Just all over the place, to be honest with you. And all of a sudden, we find out Jax is the one that's been sending Tella letters. Jax is the one that wants, Legend's true name. And this is where I just have an issue. Because we don't even know who Legend is. Throughout the first and second book, every Scarlet and Tella are all well, anybody could be Legend. Anybody. We don't even know who he is. So things are muddled. I feel like we're jumping from plot to plot to plot, but we're not really getting any resolution at all. And I feel like Jax being out in the world, but all the other fates are in the deck, isn't fully explained either. So I don't know why he's not in the deck of cards, but all the other fates are. And who has the deck of cards? Well, of course, Scarlet and Tella's mother, who put it in the Church of the Fallen Star or whatever for safekeeping. And we find out how to break that curse to get it. And Dante is swooning over, Tella, and so is Jax, who's the Prince of Hearts. And it's kind of like a love triangle, okay? But like not a believable love triangle. So like I don't believe Dante and Tella's feelings. I don't believe it at all. It's not believable. I don't feel the connection there. It just wasn't established for me. Now, I could feel Tella and Jax's romantic, things, like how they felt towards each other, all of these things. So my whole thing with the second book, I understand why it happened, and I understand that it created more story than what we got in the first book. We learn more about Tella and Scarlett's mother. We learn more about the fates. We learn more about who Legend is. We find out a lot of things, and I'm very happy for the second book. I just felt very bored while reading it, because I just felt like even though we were getting all this information and it was expanding the world and it was expanding the characters in a way, and like how the plot was going to progress and where we were going to go from here, I was very happy for that. I just felt like the execution of the story, telling here was very boring for me. Especially flipping from Scarlett to Tella, and like they're both on their own mission, but yet trying to get the same thing. It really bothered me, but I was still having an okay time. I gave Legendary 3 stars. I really did not want to keep going, because I was like, you know what? It was fine. I will just leave it the way it is. We find out who Legend is at the very end. We find out a lot of things. We find out that Tella is Jax's one true love, supposedly, because she's the only one that got his heart beating again. But then if Tella is his one true love, why does he have a spinoff where it's like a romance where you think that him and the main character are going to be together? Guys, I don't know. My brain hurts because I'm so not understanding any of these plot holes. I'm just not. Okay? 3 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. So on to finale. Boy, was I happy this wrapped up at this point, because finale was just a hogwash of just that. Okay? I can't even describe to you what finale is supposed to be. It's just wrapping up everything, guys. That's just what it's going to do. So you still have Jax, the Prince of Hearts. All the fates have been let out of the deck of cards, so they're going to slowly start waking up and wreaking havoc all over the world. Their mother was released, so they're so excited for that, but she's still not awake yet. You have Legend, who is actually Dante, who's in love with Tella. You have Jax, who seems to be in love with Tella. You have Julian and Scarlett, and just a whole bunch of storylines going, and I just didn't understand how we were going to wrap these up. And we don't wrap them all up. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I think the main ones were wrapped up, not all of them, because as you're going through, you're finding out who her mother really was. You get to meet her briefly. All of a sudden, her and the Fallen Star, Gavriel is his name, they were in love. The Fallen Star is the fate who created all the other fates. And so Tella and Scarlett's mom was in love with him. Well, then you watch her die because she tries to kill him. I don't know. It was weird. So anyway, all of a sudden Tella's like, just take my pain away, Jax, blah, blah, blah. And, he's like, I can. And, they end up like having to kiss because he's going to take her pain away. Not fully understanding, but okay. So then as we're going on, Jax still wants to know who Legend is. Dante's still around, but Legend's going into her dreams. Now Jax can go into her dreams, and they're both vying for Tella, and Tella is just not trusting either of them. It's a whole mess, guys. Whole mess. Then you have Scarlett. Scarlett finds out that she's actually the daughter of her mother, and Gavriel, the fallen star. So she's like half a fate, which is weird. So all of a sudden, Tella is her half sister, and now all of a sudden Gavriel wants Scarlet to like take away his emotions where he never loved Paradise. Her mother is Paradise the Lost. Guys, this is where I really lost a lot of stars for this book, because the mother is called Paradise the Lost. And then, of course, legend goes by Dante. Dante's Inferno, anybody? Does anybody get that correlation, or am I just the only one? I don't know. So basically, things happen. All of a sudden, Tella's married to Jax or something like that, and she didn't even know it. So now she's trying to get that undone, because now she finds out that she loves Legend, who is Dante. And she wants to be with him because Dante keeps wanting to make her immortal. So she finally goes to him and be like, make me immortal. I want to be with you. And he refuses at that point because he's like, I'm not going to be selfish. So then she's heartbroken. Then you have Scarlet, who's off with her scary dad, and he's like killing people in front of her and like making her try to use her powers. I don't know. Then all of a sudden Julian is like being held hostage. Somehow we get to a point where Gavriel is like ruling this area. I'm not sure what happened to Dante. So many plot holes, right? So then they escape with Legend's help a little bit, and then Legend gets caught, and of course now they gotta save Legend. So they come up with this idea. There's these fates that are helping them, which is wild, because you're like, the fates are bad. I'm telling you guys, like, I'm remembering a lot of this stuff as I'm talking to you, because it was just all over the place, right? All over the place. There wasn't a whole lot of structure going on. I don't know if that's how it was meant to be. Not quite sure. However, how are they going to save Legend? In the last 8 chapters, they've decided they're going to time travel. And Scarlet, who looks like her mother, Paradise the Lost, who is dead, right? They decide to talk to the assassin fate and take her back and steal a dress and observe her mother so that she can come back to the present, make Gavriel, her father, believe that she is Paradise and fall in love with her, because the only way that you can kill a fate is if they are actually in love, and whenever they're in love and in that moment they're mortal and you can kill them. So they decide, let me seduce my father. That's a great idea. So she goes back to the past, meets her mother. All of these things happen. She comes back to the future. Tella is under Jax's spell because she's made a deal with him. Like, the girl's got issues at this point. Scarlet is trying to elicit the love effect from Gavriel. It doesn't work. It blows up in their face. So then Tella, all of a sudden, being out of Jax's influence, realizes I need to try to save her. So then she runs in there. I don't know. Okay, that ending was very mind-boggling. This whole series is mind-boggling. Like, I understood in CARAVAL what was set up, the world, how things were going to be. Fully structured. We get to finale, and it's like an absolute shit show. Pardon my language, but that is what it is. It's terrible. There's so many plot lines that like don't ever get wrapped up. You don't get answers about things. I gave this whole series 2 stars. 3 for the first one, 3 for the second one, 2 for the third one, because I just didn't understand. And, you know, I hope I don't regret this, you know, reading this series before I read Once Upon a Broken Heart. Because if I find out that I really didn't need to read this trilogy and I should have just trusted other people, I'm going to be kind of upset that I read all 3 of these books in 4 days. So those are my thoughts. So many jumbled thoughts, guys. Like, I know it wasn't structured where I'm like, I liked this and I liked that and this wasn't good. That's how the series is. Like, I don't understand. Like, I can understand why people love this series. I can understand why they love certain characters. I can understand why they enjoyed themselves reading it. I don't understand why it is being raved about on the level of, like, Sarah J. Maas, Jennifer Armentrout, all of those big hitting fantasy romance authors. This did not need to be on that. It's not that good. It's not that good. 2 stars for the whole series. 3 stars for the first one, 3 for the second one, 2 for the last one, 2 stars overall for all 3 of them combined. That's how I feel. You probably love this series. You probably are sitting there yelling at, you know, your screen and telling me, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, tell me in the comments, did I miss something? Did I miss some connecting dots? Did I not understand certain characters or certain motivations? Let me know below, because I guess I want to understand a little bit more about this, because I just don't get it. So anyway, that's how I feel about that. So I won't be talking about CARAVAL as much in my wrap up for the end of the month. I'll just, you know, go over a quick overview. But I wanted to give you guys my thoughts because this is such a loved book. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. So anyway, leave me a comment below. But until next time, everyone, I hope you have a great day. Bye.